Hello, everybody. Give it a moment. Hello and welcome to our webinar, Accessible Travel and Tourism, How Destinations Are Mastering It. My name is JC Wandell, and I am the training manager at Threshold, and I will be your host for today. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items I wanted to go over. For the duration of the webinar, all attendees will be muted. We will have a Q&A session that will take place at the end of the presentation. So if you do have any questions, please submit them to the Q&A module at the bottom of your screen. Every registrant will receive a webinar replay, including all of the materials we present here today. So if you missed anything, you can go back and check it out. All right, let's get started. Go over our agenda and introduce our webinar speakers. So our first speaker is Jake Steinman. He is the founder and CEO of Travelability, whose mission is to educate the tour travel industry about the need to make travel easier for people with disabilities and to provide access to the features, resources, and support that will make the travel experience inclusive for everyone. Jake has a long history as a thought leader in the travel industry, and we are honored to have him join us here today.
Thank you.
We also have Allison Brooks, who is the Executive Director of the Mesa Regional Foundation for Accessibility, Diversity, and Inclusion, with the vision of the Mesa region being universally regarded as one of the most accessible, inclusive, and welcoming communities in the nation. Allison is widely known for her efforts in the industry, having spoken on numerous occasions, sharing the success of her and her team's efforts at Visit Mesa, and we are very excited for her to share her insights with you all today. Like I mentioned as well, I am the training manager at Threshold, and I also head up our accessibility working group, the AWG. So let's look at our agenda for today. Starting off with travelability, and then moving on to Visit Mesa's presentation, and following it up with my own presentation about the work we're doing at Threshold 360. And then lastly, our Q&A. So again, if you have any questions, please submit them and we can get to some of those answers in the Q&A. All right, so I will hand it over to Jake Steinman, our first speaker.
Okay, so thank you very much, JC, and I'm honored to be here to be able to present my story in terms of travel, really travelability story. So as JC mentioned, we collaborate with DMOs to educate their travel industries about the economic benefits of accessibility, DE&I, and sustainability. And so I'm going to tell you, talk about three stories. One is how I got started in this. And the second story is about some research that we did in terms of on a listening tour about discovering three different mindsets within the travel industry about accessibility. And the third story is about a wedding reception that I attended that kind of opened my eyes in terms of how people regarded those of us in the industry who are trying to help accessible and make travel more accessible. So I'll get started with how I got started in the industry. So I got an award. The name of our company was North American Journeys. And this was in 2018. I got an award from my office is located in Sausalito. And we had a tourism marketing company, an event company that basically had media, and we were kind of a business-to-business company helping to promote travel, inbound tourism travel, and digital marketing for destinations and other industry members that were interested in that. And but I got this award proclaiming my company Travel Agent of the Year. And I looked at that award and I thought, well, there must not be any travel agents left in Sausalito. And so, because we weren't a travel agent, I'd never planned travel for anyone. And so, but during the course of the year, people started, that award was filtered out into a local media, and people started showing up on my doorstep asking for help planning travel. Half of them had somebody with a disability who was planning travel, or someone in their family who was disabled. And so I thought it was really unusual, because it was always someone in the family that was planning this travel for them, and they just didn't know where to turn. I mean, in an era where, you have everything is online, they're cold calling, trying to cold call a travel agent, they're pretty desperate. So after about the third or fourth one, I started to try to help them. And so I couldn't find any information to really help them. And they always, the first thing they wanted to know was, where they want to know about a destination, where they could go. They all wanted to go somewhere, and then they want to know where they could stay and then what they could do. And so I started to see a pattern, and I noticed that these were, the people who were actually, they were the sons and the grandsons and the nephews and the nieces of baby boomers, people with disabilities who had aged into, people in my age group that had aged into a disability. And it sort of struck a note with me, because I'm one of them. I'm not disabled yet, but I'm one of them. And so I decided that I would just look a little deeper into this. And I had my newsletter editor prepare a white paper on what was out there. And they found the bloggers and the special needs travel agents that dealt with, specific disabilities. And they focused on helping people travel with disabilities, but they weren't easily found. And so, so I decided to go on this listening tour. And so I basically spoke with about 55 people over a 6-week period. And I came up with, basically 3 that were, and these were not only our contacts in the travel industry, which were destinations, hotels, attractions, but also some of the people that were in the white paper that were that I had commissioned. And these were the bloggers and the travel agents and some of the products that were available. And I came out with this, I concluded that there were 3 mindsets in the travel industry about accessibility. One was this mindset around fear. And primarily that's a compliance mindset. And what I learned is that the ADA that law provides some baseline infrastructure for people with disabilities. And that includes ramps and, specifications for parking and all these other curb cuts and other features. But the law was actually written for the median. And that means it's not really, it doesn't work for half the people, because every disability has a spectrum. So so hotels basically they have a fear, because they've been the targets of basically some of these drive-by lawsuits, these sort of attorneys and demand letters. And so they have, when they see accessibility, they just, I mean, we had somebody we produce a conference once a year, and we had someone at our conference that was a hotel CEO of a hotel management company. And she told the audience basically that the minute, they had a meeting every day as to who's in the hotel. And the minute whenever they had somebody with a disability in the accessible room, they thought they were put there by an attorney. So their whole mindset is really out of fear of getting sued. So, and then the next mindset we found was the mindset around inclusivity. which was really sort of the idealist. And these were people that are businesses that were like museums and attractions. And museums, for the most part, especially the museums that get federal, that are eligible for federal grants, they are very accessible. And they have programs that not only deal with, mobility issues, but hearing, blindness, and even they go even, autism, and even dementia and Alzheimer's programs, many of them have. And I think the reason that is because they also serve the local community. And they see more people with disabilities on a daily basis than a hotel would. And so accessibility is really important to them, because they have to address and serve the local audience as well. And then the third mindset I saw was really the mindset that I had when I saw it. It was really, this is an opportunity. These are baby boomers that are going to age into a disability at some point. And this was going to be a big market because demographics are, on our side. And so I started to see that this was really, so these destinations, really their job is to be the canary in the coal mine. And they're in a position where they have, relationships with the local business community. They have the relationships with the visitor. They have relationships with the airports. They have relationships with the local community, elected officials. They're at sort of the nexus of everything. And so what I learned really is that while there's an ADA for this physical infrastructure, there's no ADA for information. And that's what's missing. Because people with disabilities, when they travel, they practically, like my traveling experience it's hard enough. It takes me 2 hours to book a flight, find a flight and a hotel and book them. By the time I'm done, if I have to do this myself, it's a couple of hours worth of work. They have to be detectives to do this. I mean, they spend days looking in, they try to sweet talk an engineer into measuring, because things aren't really accessible for them, and they don't know whether it's, what they're going to find when they get there, because although things are legally compliant, it's not compliant for them, and just half the time. So it's like a game of chance. So where we come in is we see that there's, the opportunity is really with the destinations, who can put landing, who can assemble the information, organize it in a way on their website, and then work with their other local industries to basically find the create an assessment as to where they stand. So that's so the next thing that happened to me is just after our conference in Tampa. This was last year. I went to a wedding reception outside of San Francisco, and I sat at a table with 6 strangers, and someone at the table suggested that to break the ice, we all just tell each other, I'll say, where are you from? Who do you know here at the wedding? And what do you do? So it turns out the person on my left was an accidental philanthropist who had a pool cleaning company and inherited $10 million with the stipulation that he could keep 3 if he gave 7 million away. And he was looking for a passion or some cause that was, that he could find, and trying to understand how to give this money away. It was an incredible situation for somebody. And then the person across from me was an entrepreneur who started and was a founder of 4 companies, and they were sold, and His wife was the head of wealth management for Morgan Stanley in San Francisco. And then the couple on the right, the gentleman was a world-renowned photographer for National Geographic, who had, has been featured in many travel publications and on TV. And then they got to me, and I felt like, I could probably be the least accomplished person at that table. And so I just told them, I said, I just produced a conference in Tampa, travel industry conference, trying to help the industry become more accessible for people with disabilities. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I became the most interesting person at the table. All the questions were bombarding me about how I got into this and who had, and what does that mean? And what are the airlines? How do the airlines work with accessibility? How do people in wheelchairs use the bathroom? All these questions that I was actually able to answer. But I didn't realize, because I wanted to ask questions and I didn't even have a chance. And I was trying to figure out what was happening. And what I realized was they thought I was a better person than I really am, or that they were, because I had been doing this kind of work that helped humanity. And I realized that accessibility, when you work in accessibility like this, it actually has a cachet that I didn't expect. So those are the things that, so we created a playbook, and that had a lot of, like, 38-page playbook that had links, videos, PowerPoints, to help anybody that wanted to be more accessible. And one of the things we did was we had to create a business case. So I went to the I Love New York. So the state of New York tourism office created a business case, and they tried to figure out in which the results are here. And they tried to figure out the economic impact. So they have an adult population of about 15 million people. And this is a very conservative estimate that 1.5 million people are adults with a disability, and that they've spent $353 per person on average through interstate travel. These are just people that travel within New York. And so just that group of travelers, that was a $530 million economic impact. And so through that, they were able to obtain a grant from the state to basically do an entire assessment, build a website around a landing page around accessibility. And and their landing page has been iterated 4 or 5 times. They now have like search engines they're able to search by disability, what features are within the state. So anyway, so that's kind of where we stand, and I'd be happy to answer any questions later on. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jake. We'll pass it over to Allison with her presentation.
Hi, and thank you for having me. I am thrilled to talk with you about kind of our journey here at Visit Mesa, and hopefully give you some actionable things that you can begin to do today. So with that said, a little background about Visit Mesa and our journey. For those of you that may not be aware of what a DMO, or destination marketing organization, is at a very high level, our job is to really market our destination, Mesa, Arizona, which is just outside of Phoenix. Our job is to market our destination to visitors, whether they be leisure, business, group travel, whatever that is, and get them to come here and stay and spend all their money. By population, we're the 37th largest city in the United States, and we're over 133 square miles. So we may be the smallest, biggest destination that you've never heard of, but we're big and mighty. And so we branded ourselves City Limitless. And the reason that that was even born was out of the idea that we have so many awesome attractions and restaurants and museums within our borders. But we don't want to limit people to just experiencing what's inside of Mesa, because just outside of our city, we have amazing water attractions, beautiful rivers and lakes to experience, and some really cool nearby cities. And we're in charge of marketing all of that. So really, we want people to come here and not just experience what's within our boundaries. And so therefore, City Limitless was born. But then we've recently revisited what that means, what City Limitless means, and it does mean more than that. We want people to feel limitless when they come here and experience our city. So our accessibility journey began in 2019 when we did become the first autism certified city in the nation through International Board of Credentialing and Continuing Education Standards, IBCCES. And that was because of this cool little dude right here, Mason Garcia. And this is the son of our CEO, our president and CEO of Visit Mesa. And he's such a cool little dude. And he is on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum. But I'm going to try to make this long story short, but Mark and his family always visit another destination nearby and every year and spend about a week there. And this one year they decided, you know what, we're going to switch things up. Instead of staying in this beach area, we're going to stay downtown. Unfortunately, Mason was just having a rough week that week, and unfortunately just was having a lot of meltdowns. And Mark and his family are totally used to, you know, how to deal with that, and used to all of the whispering it behind their back and the looks and the stares from people. But what happened in the downtown area that particular week, which was so devastating, was the fact that they got those unsolicited advice and the whispers from people that they should know better. And that's the people within the hospitality community. So hotels, restaurants, things like that. Mark said, you know what, I can't do necessarily anything about this here, but I can definitely do something at home in Mesa. So fast forward, Mark got in touch with IBCCS, and Visit Mesa became autism certified along with our board, and then soon our mayor and all of the city of Mesa stakeholders, and then soon partners. And before we knew it, we had met the qualification to become an autism certified city. To date, we have over 50 businesses and over 5,000 people who are certified for autism in our city, which is a really incredible thing. I just wanted to show you a couple pages on our microsite for our autism travel. Here is just a snapshot of, you know, how we demonstrate the hotels that have made this commitment to being autism certified, that maybe families who are looking to come to a destination because they don't get to travel. Most of them don't travel. Over 80% choose not to travel. So we want them to feel comfortable in knowing that they're going to be welcomed. And so these are some of the hotels they can choose from. And then the same for attractions too. So there are sensory guides, which are on our website. And it's really for the idea of knowing before you go, whether you have special sensory needs or are on the spectrum, whatever that is, you can really get the idea of what it'll be like when you experience that attraction. And so we were thinking, like, how could we do more? Like, this is great and wonderful, but what can we do that's more? And so we began exploring different partners that we could really embrace that idea of doing more and becoming what we hope someday is to become the most accessible city in the United States. So you can see here on the screen, we partnered with Aira, which is an app that people who are blind or low vision can use to get them in touch with a person to act as their visual interpreter, whether they need help reading a menu or planning their visit here to Mesa. They get unlimited use of that app when they're using it for Mesa. We partnered with Able Eyes, which is a database of virtual tours throughout the world. And Able Eyes is, Visit Mesa is an Able Eyes city. We also have the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program, which is a cool lanyard that anybody who has a hidden disability can wear. And just, it basically shows, hey, I have something going on. You can't see it, but I just need a little help, a little extra attention, a little extra kindness. So these are all things that we've done, and a Threshold 360 is also one of them that we've decided that would be wonderful to work with, because with the idea of knowing before you go, it's important to know what is the situation from the parking lot to the restrooms to in hotels. What does the ADA guest room look like? So they're able to show it from the eyes of accessibility. And our role is really to remove those barriers. So with those particular partnerships, we've done just that, and we're continuing to do that. And we know it's the right thing to do. But we also know it's a great business decision. I just wanted to kind of show some of our awards. We've been so lucky to be honored with so many awards because of this work. We've also been mentioned many times in a lot of different media, the New York Times, local media, USA Today, lots of that. If you could move the slide forward. You can see some of that's just a small collection of some of the mentions that we've received because of some of the work that we've done. And then I wanted to share just some results from the last fiscal year. And we had over 1 million Google views from our virtual tours. We've given out 1,100 of these lanyards. We booked a conference just because of our autism designation. So I think that that's really cool that 500 roommates were brought here to Mesa just because of that. So these are real honest results from that work. But switching gears just a little bit, I wanted to talk about some of the actionable things that you can do, in my opinion, that will get you started on this journey. As a destination, there's really 2 ways I think that you can start making that impact and start serving that 1 in 4 people that have a disability. And that's through your programs and technologies, and then also through education. So technologies, like I mentioned before, Aira, Threshold, Able Eyes, there's also many others, Good Maps, JAWS, kiosks, all kinds of things, and programs like the Hidden Disabilities, Sunflower, IBCCS, Autism Double Check. There's so many of them that you can engage with. And yes, those do cost a little bit of money, and you do have to plan on how you get that rolled out into your destination. But they're worth it because it really shows that you're putting something really into the idea of getting your destination more accessible. But at the same time, there's things that you can do along these lines that are lesser of a cost. That, like for me, I thought, well, you know what, if I wanted to put a sensory kit together for my business, how would I do that? So I went ahead and put together a list on Amazon, and I pushed that out to my partners. And here's the things you can buy for under $100. You can make 10 sensory kits and give those out to anybody who might need it. Also, like, you can make a sensory space, which is a really easy thing to do in your business. So that's another way that you can really get behind programs and technologies. And I would say go on to travelability.net. Jake and his team have done such an outstanding job curating all of these technologies and programs that are out there. And if you have the budget to do so, budget to go to his Emerging Market Summit, because every year I learn so much, and that happens every summer. I would highly suggest going to that. And then education is the other big bucket that I think sometimes gets neglected, and usually that's the one that costs the least. It's just the one that takes the most time. And you really, as a destination, have 2 primary roles in this, and that's one for your visitors and the other for your partners. So talking about for your visitors, really the number 1 thing that you can do is get a landing page together, get all of that information that you possibly can get, whether that you reach out to your partners and find out what are they doing beyond the ADA, right? So for example, yes, we know the things they're required to do by law, but I happened to get on a call with one of our nearby museums and found out that they have an iPad sign language tour. It's things like that that you want to be adding to your landing page on your website. So that make sure that you're curating all of that and be reaching out to those partners often and listing those on your website. And give all the information about your programs. Make sure that you're loading it up. So for example, the Hidden Disability Sunflower program, we have on there a video about it, what it is, where you can get the lanyards, everything that you need to know. And then, of course, make sure that you're listing all those resources especially for transportation. That's the number 1 hangup that we hear often, time and time again, is that how do I get from the airport to my hotel? What are those resources? So even if you're just linking different businesses that can assist with these special needs that they may have, it's very helpful. And I would just say, make sure that when you do create this landing page, do not bury the information. The stuff needs to be front and center as much as you can. It shouldn't be 6 pages into the fold of your website. So number 1 tip right there. And then, if you can, make accessible itineraries. I did one through Threshold 360 here, which is really great because someone can download it, but you don't need to have Threshold. You can do this through Google Maps and create your own itineraries. You can even put them in a PDF, but take the time to make a different itinerary for different people. So I have this one here, autism friendly itineraries for families. But you can make one for people who have low mobility, for example, and put those on your website because they're really helpful too. And then finally, educating your partners is key. I would take the time, if you can, to curate as much information as possible and load it up on your extranet. And then take one or two things every now and then and drip it out to your partners as something actionable that they can either read or do. For example, I did a couple of months back, I sent out an email to all of our partners, and I think the subject line was something like, what can you do with an Allen wrench in 5 minutes? And the gist of it is that I'm sure most of you have happened to come into contact with a door that's very heavy, right? Well, imagine if you're in a wheelchair or you have some kind of shoulder issue, how hard it is to open that door. All you can simply do is loosen the screw at the top of that door with an Allen wrench in 5 minutes and make it a better experience for everyone. So that was like a tip that easily could go out to all of our partners. Send out any kind of new information, new studies, new research that supports your mission of becoming more accessible and inclusive. If you have a podcast, host somebody on that podcast and have that discussion. And then finally, listen to your partners. I recently was having coffee with one of our partners, and he said to me, I want to put an automatic door on our front door so that I won't have to run from making coffee to helping somebody through the front door. It might be using a wheelchair. And I looked into it, and it was only like $1,000. And I said, wow, well, if we could do that for all of downtown Mesa through maybe a grant, that would be an amazing thing to do. So we're in talks with the city of Mesa to be able to do just that for downtown businesses. So listen to their ideas because it's really a great thing to do. And also conferences that might be coming in, it's really important that you're communicating with all of your partners saying, hey, we have this conference coming in, send them reminders, whether that be education. For example, the Autism One conference coming in, I sent out a little reminder. These are the top things to recognize, what to do, what not to do, those kind of things. And finally, I just wanted to remind everybody that this is a journey. It's never going to be perfect. And you're never, ever going to get the nuances for every single person who has a disability, because disabilities are on a spectrum. The point is that you listen to them, you make changes, you just try to do better every time. And it's never going to be 100% complete. And that's just the way it is. But the point is just get started, even if it's starting to ask your partners what they're doing to make the experience better and putting that information on your website. That's one thing that you can begin doing today. And finally, when you do get going, I just wanted to say this world will be a better place if we're all more accessible and inclusive. So none of this is anything I'm keeping to myself. Obviously, I just told you all. So if you ever have questions for me or just want to sit and brainstorm via Zoom, I am here for it. Please contact me. I'm happy to do that.
Thank you so much, Allison. That was wonderful. All right, and switching to my presentation, just give you an overview. Like I mentioned at the start, my role at Threshold 360 as the training manager, and I also lead up our accessibility working group, our AWG. We formed the AWG really to, further our vision of incorporating accessibility within Threshold's products and services. This came out of a need that we all felt and seeing, a lot of our customers talking about accessibility spaces and eager to, communicate their destination's accessibility with any visitors or travelers. So we kind of formed that with that basis in mind. We do have some customers who began taking the lead in utilizing our current product capabilities to provide in-depth visuals across their website while creating specific landing pages outfitted with custom maps, showcasing their accessible partners and locations. We really wanted to support that effort, and that's why we formed the AWG in the first place. You can see a few examples listed in these slides, which you'll have access to the links later on as well. If you could go to the next slide, please. So you can see here kind of in line with what Allison mentioned in her presentation, creating custom maps for different types of visitors who are coming to destinations. Here we have an example of a motorized wheelchair itinerary for visit Sarasota, and lots of other customers who are pulling maps and visuals like this together and creating landing pages or microsites for these to live on and be really front and center for those customers and those visitors. The next question the AWG wanted to answer was, how can we improve our capture standards within our creator network? And if you don't know, our creators are kind of the lifeblood at Threshold. They're the individuals on the ground who are actually capturing all of our virtual tours. We decided that, inclusivity made a difference for everybody. So we wanted to create capture standards that reflected that. So we went about and created standards within all of our captures so that, creators are trained to look for and include all accessible spaces as well as features that make a big difference for travelers with disabilities. Beyond that, we also wanted to, go a little bit further and create a pilot capture that is even more focused on accessibility needs. That's called the Focused Accessibility Capture Pilot Program. This capture type is a little more in depth in that it takes a little bit more time for the creator. They are adding additional tours to show kind of exact means of egress through a location for any visitors that do have disabilities, as those kind of details and visuals are, highly key for them and visiting a location. So created that capture pilot. We've done a couple of example captures. You can see them listed here. Again, you'll have access to these links to check those out further. This is really only the beginning of what the AWG hopes to accomplish, but we're very excited to see the progress so far and the impact it has on our products and services. We know that obviously accessibility is something that is extremely important to our customers, our organizations, our society at large, really. And we want to be at the forefront of ensuring that our virtual tours and platforms communicate inclusivity to everybody. And so that's just where we're starting and, have a lot to do and a long way to go. But like Allison said, just get started and we're excited to take it from here. And that's all. All right, so we're going to switch gears and answer any questions that have come up. So if you do have any questions that came up between Jake, or Allison's presentation, feel free to check that Q&A box at the bottom and add your question there. Right, so looks like we'll see. All right, any questions from our panelists? Oh, Jake, I think you're muted. All right.
So I had a question about Threshold and just so what is the vision for for your company in terms of accessibility? Are you going to basically, at some point create a special, kind of link to the accessible page on the website, or create a accessible website in terms of where all these 360 videos can be, located in one place, and promote that to, and have cities promote that as well and link to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the first initial steps we did was make our, naming of our virtual tours a little bit consistent so that, creators, when they're capturing like an accessible guest room, they use that terminology within the actual title of the tour. So that kind of, helps us lead to, creating a library or a database that we can search within to find those specific spaces that somebody's seeking out. So that's kind of the first step. We have some ideas, down the line of how we can improve the product further, include, icons and things like that within the actual virtual tour, to help communicate which spaces are accessible or have accessible features in them to kind of, show exactly where within that location somebody can check out that virtual tour. So that's kind of looking down the line. We have, some work to do to get there, but we definitely want to make, a resource that's, easily searchable, navigable, and able to provide those accessible tours front and center for anybody looking for them.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's look at some questions here. I got one from Larissa. Let's see. I may have missed this, but what kind of things go into a sensory room? I think that one was for Allison. If you have any
Sure.
thoughts.
And usually a sensory room is utilized when somebody just needs a reprieve. So it's things that generally calm somebody down. So generally you want to make it a quieter room, kind of away from different things. You want it to be soft lighting. You want to have soft furniture, comfortable. You just think comfortable, and then things to maybe do or distract, right? So here I have lots of things on my desk, something to play with like this, a little bubble thing, things like that. So anything that can just relax somebody is generally a good thing to have in a sensory room. And then you can add your sensory kits full of these types of things in there as well.
Yeah, we got another kind of follow-up question. What's some items you put in your sensory kit?
Yeah. So just think of all of your senses. So you could put some kind of something to block sound. So earplugs could be something, something to block light. So sunglasses, right? Something to do with your hands. So it could be Play-Doh, or it could be just a little gadget like this. So just think of all the things of your senses, even some bubble gum or something like a sucker to just to have something like that. So for taste. Those are the kind of things that you could put in your kit.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Switching to Jake, for you, question, whose responsibility should this be within your organization that you see, taking kind of the lead there?
Well, if your organization has someone covering DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it fits into the inclusion part of DE&I. So at our conference, we basically created and included DE&I in it because we wanted people to be cross-trained on accessibility and DE&I as well. If they have someone who's in charge of training in the in terms of destination, or someone that is working with guest services training, anybody that's involved in kind of partnering with the hotel or the attraction industry, or basically any of their tourism industry partners, that person is really an ideal person that I find that usually handles accessibility. And then and then oftentimes it's someone that really just has a family member that's afflicted and wants to just raise their hand and take this over, and just because it's something they have a lived experience around, so that's but there should be a point person that is so at our conference. What we were trying to do is have the person that attended our conference become the sort of the accessibility ambassador for their company, and because they know more than anyone else. And so it's really, it's a variety of things. There are very few destinations that have something like Mesa has, where you have Allison that's in charge of, that's her job, is really to work with DE&I and accessibility. And they're looking to be a differentiator. So I found that cities that live in the shadow of bigger cities, destinations that live in the shadow of bigger cities, that are looking for a way to differentiate themselves, this is an ideal kind of effort for them, because they have probably better relationships with their industry and the community than a big city could have. So anyway, so that's what I'm looking at.
Nice. Excellent. Got another question. Would you recommend doing stakeholder meetings or workshops first before getting started on the website videos, getting your arms wrapped around information and assets in the destination? Or what's the process to get started when a destination is starting from ground zero, but very interested in talking about their accessibility offerings? That might be,
Is that for me?
I think maybe for Allison.
Oh.
So
Okay.
Probably for both of us, actually. I would say just getting started would be getting information onto your landing page, your website. That would be the number one thing. And then what was the second part of that question?
what's the process to get started when a destination is starting from ground zero?
So yeah, so just basically that is, start curating that information, reach out to your partners, to your stakeholders, get the information, again, what they're doing above and beyond just ADA compliance, and start collecting that information in a place that it can be easily found as a resource, and then start going on to Google and finding what are those different resources that somebody may be able to that you might be able to link on to and put on your website. So just backlinking, things like that, really important stuff. And then as you start coming across resources such as Travelability, such as a webinar like this, and being able to post it onto your extranet for your partners is really helpful. And that way you're curating information for them so that when they have the time, they can read about, what does this study say and why I should support this initiative, things like that.
Well,
Yeah.
from my perspective, what I get a lot of is really kind of what disability should they start with? They feel overwhelmed because there are so many, there's 4 or 5 different disabilities and they don't know where to begin. And I recommend they begin with wheelchairs because that's the most common situation. And then what they they should really focus around sending an email out to their entire industry about the fact that they want the destination to be inclusive and welcoming to everyone. And in order to do that, they need information. And and then they need to send a survey out to have the industry self-assess what they have that is beyond the ADA. And through that survey, you'll find things that you can feature in on a landing page for that. And those are the ways. And then the other thing I'm asked is really, Allison was right. This is a journey. This is not something that you're going to have right away. That's going to be something that's useful for everybody. It'll be, and so it's an iterative process as you find more information. So I recommend kind of, when you're starting, focus around a disability holiday. Because, for example, December 3rd is International Disability Awareness Day. And just and that is that's a day that the media is completely aware of. And then April is Autism Awareness Month. And then July is Disability Awareness Month in the US, because that's the anniversary of the ADA. And during those times, one of the benefits that and I think Allison really kind of alluded to this, is the positive PR you get within the community is tremendous. And the PR and the media is really tuned to these holidays. And so using those holidays as kind of a rallying point is when you're doing the promotion phase of this, is something that I think the industry responds to, and because they want to be part of something bigger. So that's what I would recommend.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, next question we have is, have you worked with more rural areas? I think that might be for me, or maybe for you, Jake. I would just say,
Okay, yeah.
with Threshold ourselves, yes, I mean, we've worked in a number of smaller destinations, even smaller than, Mesa and, other cities, We have creators who work in lots of different areas across North America. And the way we've built up our network, we're really able to, engage with local photographers who live in that city, get them trained quickly and get them capturing, even within smaller destinations within a very quick time frame. So yes, we have worked in some rural areas.
So, so I was surprised that the attendance at our conference are really a lot of rural areas.
Yeah.
So Oregon, one region in Oregon, the Oregon Coast region, brought 10 people, including one of their elected officials to our event. So I think what's happening and there were other rural destinations that were there, and they have a more intimate relationship with their local communities and their local businesses because they're smaller and they're part of a more focused community. And I think that, and then secondarily, they're eligible for grants. There's a lot of grant money coming down through the federal government that's filtered through the states around rural tourism recovery. Excuse me. And so I'm just seeing a lot of rural areas applying and receiving grants. That Oregon Coast effort, those 10 people were all hosted by Oregon Coast through a grant. And I've seen 3 or 4, we're receiving requests to bid on these, on assessments for these counties, these rural counties that want to become more accessible. Because I think and I think because accessibility is different than other things. You're not only accessible, once you're accessible like this and have the landing page, you're not only accessible for visitors, you're accessible for the locals. And, so statistically, 15% of the local community also has somebody with a disability that, that you would be servicing. So I think this is why there's so many grants that are coming into accessibility, because they sort of service both the local and the visitor.
Yeah, it's excellent. Kind of leads to my next question. Can you expand upon the grant funding that may be available for businesses or destinations that are trying to highlight or improve their accessibility? Jake or Allison, if you'd like to answer.
Allison, have you had experience with grants?
We have through the Visit Arizona initiative, which has been able to fund us for a lot of the things that we're doing. But other than that, I have not.
So, yeah, so I think what I'm seeing is that there are now grants that are being put out and the destinations are applying for them. And I don't know what location that person, the questioner is asking about, but they should just check with their state. What they need to do is just state with their state economic development department, because most of these are coming through the economic development offices, and the state tourism offices are usually part of are under the economic development area. So they could just check with that area and find out what grants are available.
Excellent. Yeah. All right, so to follow up that excellent presentation from both Jake and Allison, we are going to answer the rest of the remaining questions offline. And then just to reiterate that we will provide the full replay of this webinar and the materials that we've showed here today in everyone's inbox in the next coming days. So again, thank you so much, Jake. Thank you so much, Allison. It has been a pleasure hearing your voices and hearing your perspectives. And thank you, everybody, as well for joining in this conversation and hearing what we had to say. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.